How do you know when to hold on to someone and when it's finally time to let go? This is one of the most difficult, heart-wrenching questions we face in love, because when you care about someone deeply, the idea of leaving isn't just about losing them, it's about losing the dream of what you hoped the relationship could be. And that's why so many people stay in situations long after their happiness has disappeared. But here's the truth: love isn't just about how much you feel. It's also about how you're treated, how you grow together, and whether the relationship actually adds value to your life. Knowing when to leave is not about being cold-hearted. It's about being honest with yourself, respecting your standards, and protecting your future. Today, we're going to explore exactly how to recognize those crucial signs, the signals that tell you whether this relationship is nourishing you or whether it's slowly draining the best parts of who you are. When we think about relationships, most of us put emotions on the highest pedestal. We assume that as long as we feel love, as long as the chemistry is there, that's all that really matters. But here's the reality: emotions can be intoxicating, but they can also be deceiving. Feelings are powerful, but they can keep us in places where our deeper needs are constantly being ignored. That's why the first and most crucial step in knowing when to leave a relationship is recognizing the difference between your emotions and your standards. Standards are not about being picky or demanding, they are about the non-negotiable values that define how you expect to be treated in love. These are things like respect, honesty, consistency, effort, and kindness. They are the foundation of any healthy partnership. Emotions, on the other hand, are about how you feel in the presence of someone. Love, attraction, passion, desire. And while those emotions can be real and intense, they are not enough to hold a relationship together if the standards are missing. Think about it this way: you can love someone deeply and still be miserable with them. You can wake up every morning feeling butterflies for them, but if they consistently dismiss your needs, if they don't respect your boundaries, if they give you crumbs instead of commitment, then your heart will be full, but your soul will feel starved. Love without standards is like trying to build a house on sand. The emotions might make you want to stay, but without a solid foundation, the house will eventually collapse. One of the hardest truths to accept is that sometimes the person we love is not the person who is right for us. Love can make us justify almost anything. We excuse the broken promises because they didn't mean it. We excuse the lack of effort because they're just busy. We excuse the disrespect because they were just having a bad day. And before we know it, we've turned into someone who tolerates things we once swore we never would. That's what happens when emotions take the driver's seat and our standards take the back. The danger of this is that when you consistently allow emotions to override your standards, you begin to betray yourself. And self-betrayal is one of the most painful wounds to recover from, because deep down, you always know when you're settling. You know when your needs aren't being met. You know when you're sacrificing your self-worth just to hold on to a connection. And the longer you ignore that voice inside you, the louder the pain becomes. Imagine two people: one gives you butterflies but also gives you anxiety, doubt, and inconsistency. The other may not feel like fireworks every single moment, but they show up for you, they respect you, and they make you feel safe. Which one is truly the healthier choice? The first person excites your emotions but drains your standards. The second may not always ignite constant passion, but they meet the non-negotiables that create lasting love. When you measure a relationship purely by how much you feel, you risk attaching yourself to the wrong person for the wrong reasons. When you measure it by both emotions and standards, you create a love that can actually last. Now, here's the difficult part. Leaving a relationship where your standards aren't being met doesn't mean you don't love that person. It simply means you love yourself enough to not settle for less than you deserve. Too often, people equate leaving with failure. They tell themselves, if I leave, it means I gave up. It means I didn't try hard enough. But leaving a relationship where your needs aren't met is not failure. It's self-respect. It's a decision that says, I refuse to let my emotions blind me to the reality of how I'm being treated. This doesn't mean relationships should be perfect or that we should abandon someone the moment things get tough. No relationship is without flaws, and compromise is a part of love. But there is a difference between compromise and sacrifice. Compromise is when both partners adjust to meet in the middle. Sacrifice is when only one person keeps shrinking, bending, and giving up their needs, while the other takes it for granted. If you constantly find yourself in sacrifice mode, then it's no longer love, it's survival. Another important truth is that your standards will ultimately determine the quality of your life. If you lower them to hold on to someone, you're not just risking heartbreak, you're risking your sense of identity. Over time, your confidence erodes because you've taught yourself that your needs don't matter. And when you lose confidence, you start to believe that this is the best you can get, that this is all you deserve. That mindset traps countless people in unhealthy relationships for years. To break free, you have to ask yourself a hard but necessary question. If I remove my feelings from the equation and simply look at the way this person treats me, would I still want to stay? That question often cuts through the fog of emotions and reveals the truth. Because the answer isn't found in how much you love them, it's found in how much they honor and respect you. Love should never come at the cost of your dignity. If being with someone means constantly questioning your worth, begging for attention, or doubting where you stand, then it's time to step back and realize that your emotions are keeping you trapped in something that is beneath your standards. The right relationship will not force you to choose between love and self-respect. It will give you both. And that's the ultimate truth. Emotions are temporary, standards are permanent. Feelings can come and go, but your standards should remain unwavering, because one day the intensity of your feelings might fade, but the way someone consistently treats you will remain. When you find someone who aligns with both, who ignites your emotions while also honoring your standards, you found something truly rare. Until then, never let your heart silence the voice of your self-worth. When it comes to relationships, one of the most common mistakes people make is listening more to what is being said than to what is consistently being done. Words are easy. Promises are easy. Grand gestures in the moment are easy. But what truly reveals the strength of a relationship is consistency. Consistency is the proof of intention. It's the bridge between someone's feelings and their actions. And when you're trying to figure out whether to stay or leave a relationship, the consistency test is one of the most powerful indicators you can use. Think about how many times you may have heard someone say, "I'll change," or "I'll do better," or "I promise it won't happen again." In the moment, those words can feel convincing because they tap directly into your hope. We want to believe that people mean what they say, especially if we care about them. But here's the uncomfortable truth. What someone says in a heightened emotional moment is not nearly as important as what they show you repeatedly when no one is watching. The difference between someone who is serious about you and someone who is stringing you along is not in their words. It's in their patterns. If a person tells you they love you but disappears for days without contact, what do their actions really communicate? If they apologize for hurting you, but repeat the same behavior over and over, what does that show you about their priorities? If they say they want a future with you, but avoid taking any concrete steps toward it, are their words really worth holding on to? When words and actions don't line up, it's not a misunderstanding, it's information. It's the evidence you need to evaluate whether this relationship is truly sustainable. Consistency isn't just about big promises either. It's about the small, everyday behaviors that make you feel secure and valued. Anyone can show up big once in a while when they feel guilty or when they sense you're slipping away. But true commitment is reflected in the small, steady ways someone invests in you without needing to be asked. It's the daily, "I'm thinking of you," the follow-through on commitments, the willingness to be there even when it's inconvenient. Those are the actions that build trust. Without that consistency, you'll always feel like you're standing on shaky ground, waiting for the next disappointment to arrive. And here's the danger. When we desperately want a relationship to work, we tend to overvalue the peaks and ignore the valleys. We cling to those rare moments when someone does treat us well, convincing ourselves that those highs are the real them, and everything else is just a fluke. But the truth is, the lows are just as much a part of who they are. If the highs are rare and the lows are constant, then the relationship is defined more by inconsistency than stability. Hope can keep you stuck because you keep waiting for the version of them that only shows up once in a while. But you can't build a future on occasional glimpses of potential. You need consistent reality. Another thing to consider is that inconsistency creates emotional chaos. When someone's behavior is unpredictable, it puts you in a constant state of anxiety. You never know which version of them you're going to get, and that uncertainty eats away at your peace of mind. One day they're loving and attentive, the next day they're distant and cold. One moment they're making plans with you, the next they're withdrawing without explanation. This roller coaster might keep the relationship exciting in a toxic way, but over time, it erodes your emotional stability. You start to question yourself, doubt your worth, and even blame yourself for their inconsistency. But it's not about you. It's about their lack of commitment and clarity. Here's what's important to understand: consistency is a choice. Everyone is capable of being consistent when they want to be. Think about it. If someone is punctual at work every day, it's because they value their job. If they show up for their friends without fail, it's because they care about those friendships. The same applies to relationships. If someone is inconsistent with you, it's not because they can't. It's because you're not a priority in the way you should be. And that's a harsh but necessary truth to face. This is why the consistency test is so powerful. It cuts through the excuses and forces you to look at what's actually happening. Instead of asking, do they love me? Or do they care about me? Ask yourself, do their actions consistently align with their words? If the answer is no, then no amount of love can make up for that gap. Love without consistency feels like a constant gamble, and you deserve more than to gamble your happiness on someone's unreliable behavior. The other thing about consistency is that it builds trust over time. Trust isn't created in one grand gesture. It's built brick by brick through actions that prove someone is who they say they are. If your relationship lacks that foundation, you'll always feel like you're standing on a house of cards, afraid that the slightest wind will bring it all down. That's not the kind of security you deserve. A healthy relationship should give you peace, not paranoia. Now, deciding to leave based on inconsistency doesn't mean you're giving up too soon. It means you're acknowledging the truth that consistency is the currency of commitment. Without it, you'll always be living on promises, and promises don't pay the bills of love. What does pay those bills is reliability, stability, and follow-through. If you don't have those things, then you're not in a partnership. You're in a cycle of temporary highs and crushing lows. So, when you're torn about whether to stay or leave, apply the consistency test. Look not at what they say in their best moments, but at how they show up for you over weeks, months, and years. Do they show you reliability, or do they keep you guessing? Do they follow through on what they promise, or do they repeatedly let you down? Do they make you feel safe and secure, or do you constantly feel anxious and uncertain? The answers to those questions will tell you everything you need to know. Consistency isn't glamorous. It isn't always exciting, but it's what transforms love from a fleeting emotion into a lasting bond. If you don't have it, then the relationship is like trying to plant seeds in soil that's never watered. It might look hopeful at first, but nothing real will ever grow. And if that's the case, then leaving isn't walking away from love. It's walking toward the kind of love that will finally give you stability, peace, and the consistency you deserve. Growth is one of the most overlooked but essential parts of a healthy relationship. When we enter into love, we imagine partnership as something that lifts us up, supports our ambitions, and inspires us to become more. The right relationship should add value to our life, not take it away. But so often, people find themselves in relationships where instead of growing, they feel smaller. Instead of being encouraged, they feel diminished. And instead of feeling alive, they feel stuck. This is where the choice of whether to stay or leave becomes clear. Because love that doesn't allow you to grow will eventually suffocate you. At its best, a relationship is like fertile soil. When you plant yourself in the right ground, you flourish. Your ideas expand, your confidence rises, and you feel like the best version of yourself. You're not afraid to dream bigger because you know you have a partner who not only believes in you, but pushes you to keep going when you doubt yourself. Contrast that with a relationship that feels like concrete. No matter how much you try, nothing grows. You feel stifled, unsupported, or even actively discouraged from being who you are meant to be. And sometimes it's not overt negativity, it's subtle. The little comments that downplay your dreams, the lack of enthusiasm when you achieve something, the way your partner avoids growth themselves, pulling you into a cycle of stagnation. The question you need to ask yourself is simple: who am I becoming in this relationship? Do I feel more confident, more alive, more motivated? Or do I feel drained, silenced, and unsure of myself? The answer to that question will tell you more than your emotions will. Because love can be intoxicating, but love without growth is like a cage decorated with flowers. It may look beautiful from the outside, but you know deep down you're trapped. A relationship that doesn't allow growth often keeps you in a constant state of compromise, but not the healthy kind. It's the type where you compromise your voice, your goals, and your individuality just to keep the peace. Over time, you stop recognizing yourself. Maybe you once had passions that you abandoned because your partner didn't value them. Maybe you stopped spending time with friends because it always caused conflict. Maybe you've even dulled your own personality because you felt it was too much. These are red flags that the relationship is not a place of growth, but of contraction. And here's the thing, growth is not just about career achievements or external success. Growth is also about emotional expansion. Do you feel emotionally safer and stronger in this relationship than you did before? Do you feel like your ability to love, to communicate, to handle life's challenges has expanded because of your partner's support? Or do you feel like you're constantly on edge, walking on eggshells, or shrinking yourself to avoid conflict? If your relationship is robbing you of emotional growth, it's preventing you from becoming the best version of yourself. Another perspective to consider is whether your partner is growing themselves. Because if you're committed to growth, but your partner is committed to staying the same, that mismatch will eventually create tension. Growth doesn't mean you need to have the same goals, but it does mean you share the same mindset of becoming better over time. A relationship is a partnership, and if one person is always evolving while the other resists change, resentment will build. Over time, you'll feel like you're dragging them along instead of walking side by side. Many people stay in stagnant relationships because they confuse comfort with happiness. They tell themselves, it's familiar, so it must be okay. But familiarity is not the same as fulfillment. Just because you're used to the way things are doesn't mean it's the way they're supposed to be. Growth requires discomfort. It requires stepping outside the familiar and pushing into something greater. If your relationship doesn't challenge you in healthy ways, if it doesn't encourage you to stretch and expand, then it's not truly serving you. Of course, no relationship is free of challenges. Growth sometimes comes from working through difficulties together. But there's a difference between a challenge that builds you and a challenge that breaks you. A relationship that builds you will teach you patience, resilience, and deeper empathy. A relationship that breaks you will make you question your worth, silence your voice, and erode your confidence. Knowing the difference between the two is essential in deciding whether it's time to stay or to leave. The fear that often keeps people stuck is the belief that leaving means starting over from scratch. The idea of building a life without that person feels overwhelming. But here's the truth: if the relationship is keeping you from growing, then you're already losing valuable time. Every day you stay in a stagnant place is a day you could have spent becoming more of who you were meant to be. Leaving isn't about abandoning love, it's about reclaiming yourself. Ask yourself, if I project my life 5 years forward in this relationship, will I be more of who I want to be or less? Will I feel more alive or more drained? Will I have achieved the dreams I've been nurturing, or will I still be putting them on hold? Those questions reveal whether this relationship is fueling your growth or blocking it. And if it's blocking it, then the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for your future is to walk away. The beauty of choosing growth is that it opens the door to the right kind of love. The kind where your partner doesn't just accept you, but actively encourages you to become more. The kind where your wins feel like they're wins, where your passions are celebrated, and where your individuality is seen as a strength, not a threat. That's the love worth waiting for. That's the love that feels like true partnership. Ultimately, a relationship should be a platform, not a prison. It should be the place where you take off, not where you feel chained down. If your relationship doesn't make you feel like you're expanding into more of yourself, then it's not the right soil for you to grow. And while leaving may feel like loss, what you're actually doing is creating space for a love that nurtures your potential instead of shrinking it. Because the right love will never ask you to play small. It will inspire you to grow beyond what you thought was possible. Every relationship has its ups and downs. No one can realistically expect constant harmony, and occasional conflict is not only normal, but sometimes healthy because it gives two people a chance to better understand each other. But there's a difference between temporary storms and living in a constant state of chaos. The truth is, one of the clearest signs that it may be time to leave a relationship is when the overall balance tilts more toward stress, doubt, and drama than toward peace, trust, and joy. Love should bring you stability more often than it brings you turbulence. If you find yourself always fighting for moments of peace rather than experiencing it as the natural state of your relationship, that's when you need to ask yourself some difficult questions. Peace in a relationship isn't about the absence of problems. It's about the presence of emotional security. When you're with the right person, you feel safe being yourself. You don't walk on eggshells, afraid that one wrong word will trigger an explosion. You don't spend sleepless nights wondering where you stand or whether their feelings are real. Instead, there's a baseline of calm that runs underneath everything, even during arguments. You know that disagreements don't threaten the relationship itself, because the foundation is strong. That kind of peace allows you to thrive, and it's something we all deserve. Now compare that to a relationship where chaos is the norm. Maybe the two of you argue constantly, often over the same issues that never seem to get resolved. Maybe you experience long stretches of silence after fights, with one person withdrawing or using the cold shoulder as punishment. Maybe there's a cycle where things get really bad, then there's a temporary honeymoon period of sweetness and affection, only for the chaos to return again. This roller coaster might feel intense, even addictive at times, but intensity is not the same as intimacy. What you're experiencing in that kind of dynamic is not love, it's instability dressed up as passion. The problem with living in a chaotic relationship is that it consumes your emotional energy. Instead of focusing on your goals, your friendships, or your growth, you're constantly firefighting. Your thoughts are occupied with the next argument, the next crisis, the next moment of doubt. Over time, this kind of environment chips away at your happiness and leaves you exhausted. You begin to normalize the chaos, telling yourself that all relationships are hard, or this is just how love is. But love isn't meant to feel like a war zone. Love, at its healthiest, is meant to give you a safe harbor in a world that's already full of enough stress. Another red flag is when doubt becomes a constant companion. Of course, everyone has moments of insecurity or questioning in a relationship, but if you find yourself perpetually wondering whether your partner really loves you, whether they're faithful, or whether you can trust their intentions, then you're not experiencing peace. You're living in a state of uncertainty that corrodes the foundation of love. Trust is the anchor of peace in any partnership. Without it, every interaction feels unstable. You can't fully relax into the relationship because there's always a nagging sense that something could go wrong. That kind of emotional volatility isn't sustainable long term. It's important to remember that a healthy relationship doesn't mean the absence of effort. There will always be times where you and your partner have to work through disagreements or adjust to life changes. But even in those moments, the underlying tone should still be one of mutual respect and reassurance. You should still feel like you're on the same team, working toward a solution together. If instead the relationship feels like a battlefield where you're fighting each other more than you're fighting the problem, then the chaos has overtaken the connection. Why do so many people stay in relationships that are filled with chaos? Because they confuse drama with passion. When someone is inconsistent, when the relationship is full of highs and lows, it can create a chemical roller coaster in your brain that feels addictive. The lows make you crave the highs, and when you get them, they feel intoxicating. You tell yourself that the passion must mean it's true love. But true love doesn't require constant adrenaline to survive. True love is not chaos, it's consistency. It's the kind of peace that may not always feel like fireworks, but instead feels like a steady flame that warms you day after day. Choosing peace over chaos doesn't mean choosing boredom. It doesn't mean settling for something uninspired. In fact, peace is what allows deeper passion to flourish. When you're not constantly worried about the state of your relationship, you're free to explore, to connect, to build intimacy in a way that isn't possible in a chaotic environment. Peace gives you the mental and emotional space to fully enjoy your partner without fear. It allows you to build passion that isn't born from insecurity or fear of loss, but from genuine love and trust. The decision to leave, then, often comes down to asking yourself, does this relationship bring me more peace or more chaos? Do I spend most of my time feeling calm, loved, and secure, or do I spend most of my time feeling anxious, hurt, and uncertain? When the scales tip heavily toward chaos, the writing is on the wall. Staying in that environment will only continue to drain you, while leaving opens the door to the kind of love that can actually nurture your peace of mind. There's also a self-worth element here. If you've convinced yourself that chaos is normal, that love is supposed to be painful and difficult, then you've lowered your standards. You've accepted a version of love that robs you of peace. But when you reclaim your self-worth, you realize that peace is not a luxury, it's a necessity. You deserve to be with someone who doesn't just excite you, but who also gives you the gift of stability. Ultimately, leaving a relationship that brings more chaos than peace is not about giving up. It's about choosing yourself. It's about refusing to let your life be defined by drama, instability, and pain. It's about recognizing that true love doesn't take away your peace, it enhances it. The right person will not make you question your worth, your trust, or your sanity. They will make you feel grounded, safe, and loved in a way that frees you to be your best self. So, if you're caught in the storm of a chaotic relationship, remember this: love isn't supposed to feel like constant turmoil. Love is supposed to be your calm in the storm, not the storm itself. Choosing to leave isn't walking away from love. It's walking toward the peace you deserve, the peace that is the true foundation of lasting happiness.